Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for attending our first among many free webinars by WellFit Consultancy. I would like to thank you for your time and more so for your initiative in learning more about your health and well-being in the workplace. I hope my voice quality is being heard well by your end. And before we begin, just a brief communication protocol that we're going to be using. The session is going to be actually for 20 minutes as for the presentation, and then we're going to have a Q&A, so you may leave all your questions until then. And I also have my partner with me, Mr. Bassam Zahreddin, and he's going to give a brief presentation as well at the end. I hope that this session will be of benefit to you, and so it would help you work well and prosper as well. So I'm going to give you a brief introduction about myself. As you can see, my name is Salam Zahreddin. I'm the co-founder and operations director at WellFit Consultancy. And my background is that of physical therapy, where I did a Bachelor of Science. And I'm also a certified ergonomics specialist from Colorado State University. And my more relevant background for this session is that of scientific research, where I authored and co-authored 4 health and scientific textbooks in the past. From this research journey, one of the more interesting topics that I had the pleasure of diving into was that of posture. Because, we always hear that you need to sit straight and you need to stand straight. But the actual scientific context behind that was lacking for me. And from the scientific literature that I was able to read, I found many interesting information related to posture that I like to share always. And that's why I decided to start our first free webinar by talking about posture. So without further ado, let's dive directly into the contents of this session. So we're going to talk about 4 main topics. First of all, we're going to define posture, define the most common postures afterward, what we actually know about posture compared to the theories that we always hear about, and we're going to do a background check where these theories started, and how we can apply the information that you learn in this presentation in daily practice, whether at work and at home. To give you a brief insight about that, what's mostly going to be interesting is that this information and this application that you're going to learn at the end will actually ease up your life rather than force you to do more stuff for this benefit. So by the end of this session, hopefully your life is going to be easier than before the session started. Let's start first by defining posture. Whenever we say posture, especially static posture, we refer to the position that we hold our body in when we stand or when we sit. More specifically, it's represented by the alignment between the ears, the shoulders, the hips, knees, and ankle. And we're looking at this alignment in a side or profile view. When standing, all these points should be on top of each other in theory, which will reduce gravitational forces on the joints, whether when we sit or when standing. So the ear, shoulders, hips, knees, and ankle should be in a straight alignment. Now, when we sit, in theory, we want to look at the ears, upper back or shoulders, and hips in a vertical alignment, the hips and knees in a horizontal alignment, the knees and ankle in a vertical alignment, and the elbow on a straight line with the desk and with the chair that you're sitting on. So if we want to translate what would be the opposite of this perfect or ideal alignment, any lack of alignment or any misalignment between these points, for example, in the picture you can see with the red line, if the head, for example, is moving forward, then we're breaking this vertical alignment when we stand, which we can say that our posture is therefore incorrect. So this is all in theory. It makes perfect sense. And if we want to talk why this theory has evolved, it's because we don't want any joint to handle more forces of gravity than its capacity. So in this vertical alignment, the stress of gravity is distributed equivalently among joints. So any deviation from this alignment is going to put excessive forces on the joint or the segment that has been pushed away from the alignment. This may cause increased muscle tension needed to stabilize the joint during prolonged sitting and standing, which can lead to discomfort, pain, and injury. Now, to give you a heads up, this statement is not specifically false. However, the importance that we need to put on the shape of your posture or your actual alignment compared to the time you spend sitting and standing is going to make the entire difference between the theory about posture and the reality about posture. Another theory about posture is that any asymmetry or lack of symmetry between your left and right side can also increase the stress handled by either side and can lead to overuse injuries as well. Now, let's shift from the theories and learn what are the most common deviations or what are the most common postural abnormalities that you can see. So these are known as scoliosis, as the one you can see on the left, which is a deviation you can see from the front or the back, with the spine drawing a C shape or sometimes even worse, an S shape. It's more common in girls than boys, and it's usually detected in adolescents, so in younger ages. The second posture you can see is that of a hunched back or kyphosis. This is also a very common posture. It's when the upper back is pushed away from the vertical alignment or from the neutral alignment and the neck is pushed forward. It can be due to a structure or due to some habits that we acquire in life. The third posture is known as a hyperlordosis, specifically at the lower back, where the curve of the lower back is increased excessively, and you can see the hips or the butt sticking out to the rear. And the last posture is known as a flat back, which is the opposite of a hyperlordosis. It's when all the spine is in a straight position. This may increase the stress on the lower back area because the S shape of the spine is what gives it its equivalent distribution of forces. So these are the most common postural deviations that we usually see. Now let's understand where all the theories about postures evolved from. So in reality, posture started to become a notion, or the ideal standing posture started to become a notion in the 16th century, when it became associated with military practices, as the image you can see on the right. Now, this doesn't mean that before the 16th century no one knew about standing straight, but it became a more common practice in the 16th century, and it became more documented. Now, it evolved from a military practice to a social standard later on, and it became a mainstream notion to associate health, discipline, social class, and even ethics with an upright and standing posture. So in the image you can see at the bottom, if a kid is standing upright and straight, it's associated that he is well educated and he has proper discipline and proper ethics because he's putting this effort into standing straight and he respects his elder and so on. Whereas a slouched posture, which you can see on the far left, is associated with someone who's poor, who is lazy, and who lacks ethics. So it was associated more with the lower economic classes. The extreme of mainstream postural theories was when physical therapists and chiropractors ran a beauty contest that not just judges the physical beauty, but also the spinal beauty, where contestants had to demonstrate a perfect X-ray along with their body to be able to win this contest. So we now have beauty contests that are associated with being able to stand upright and having this almost perfect symmetry. So all these contexts and all this historical progress and evolution of the posture was associated as well with the theories that we mentioned in the previously, that you always need to stand straight, you always need to sit straight. However, in reality, the scientific data and studies that were done on posture reveal a different story that we're going to reveal now in 8 most important points that you may want to keep with you at the end of this session, because these may change your perspective about posture. Each statement that we're going to provide here is linked with its own study that I'm going to provide the references at the end if you want to double check and see for yourself. So the first misconception about posture is that any mild postural deviation, so we're not talking about the extreme cases that require medical and surgical intervention, we're talking about mild postural deviations, they are very normal and they do not necessarily cause pain and injuries. So the references are the ones you can see in parentheses. This is the name of the author and the date of the study. That was the first and one of the most important scientific findings, that we don't need to stress too much about mild postural deviations. We need to embrace them and accept them, that it's part of human nature, that we can't all be having the same posture and the same upright posture. The second important point that the scientific data was able to reveal was that the time spent in any posture whatsoever is much more important than your shape of the posture when it comes to eliciting pain and discomfort. And we asked a question on our LinkedIn event page yesterday on your opinion and your thoughts regarding the most important factor for posture. In reality, the most important factor is that the time that you spend in any posture. It does not matter as much what's the shape of your posture, if you're slouched, if you're hunched, if you're upright. But if you spend a long period, more than 1 hour and a half in the same posture, chances are you're going to develop some degree of discomfort and pain. The third misconception is that the ideal posture of any person is not just one position. It's not just standing upright or sitting upright. Instead, it's more of a range of postures that we feel comfortable with, and at the same time, they're not extreme postures. It's not like I'm extremely slouching, but any range of posture around this ideal posture, chances are we're going to be comfortable in. So we don't need to understand one ideal posture about our body rather than understanding a range of posture. It's not a black or white matter. It's more about a huge gray spectrum. The fourth point is that there is no one size fits all when it comes to standing and sitting postures. Different people are going to feel comfortable in different sitting and standing postures. That's going to depend on their actual structure, which is what we mentioned is different between individuals, and also on how they feel comfortable and how they can focus. So technically speaking, if someone is slouched, it does not mean that they're not working hard or they're not focused. It could just mean that this is how they feel comfortable sitting. The fifth point is that if we're constantly being told to sit and stand straight, it's not going to be helpful in any way. I'm assuming that all of you have been told in the past to sit straight, especially when we were in school sitting on these uncomfortable desks. And we all know that being constantly told to sit and stand straight is just going to create stress and fear of slouching. But at the end of the day, we're all going to slouch at some point, unless our structure is built in a way where we feel most comfortable sitting upright. So instead of being a helpful strategy, it's going to be a fear-mongering strategy, or it's going to initiate fear and guilt for us when we slouch if we're constantly told to sit straight. So the sixth posture comes from this point, is that if we're obsessed with posture, it can create more problems that it can solve. So I attached two pictures for that matter, which I found on Instagram while scrolling through meme pages. So humor pages. I found bots, robots, spamming comments about to fix your posture and to stay motivated to stop slouching, as if it's a cause or initiative that we need to start doing now. And I actually looked into the page, and the whole page was just reminders of you to sit straight. Now, this is not going to create any helpful strategy. Just being guilty about sitting in a slouched position is not going to help you sit straight. We need to find more practical and more evidence-based tools to help you improve your health at work and to improve specifically your musculoskeletal health. Instead, the constant feeling of guilt combined with this helplessness that you can't do anything about your posture, it's just going to create guilt that you need to do something, but you have no idea what to do, and there's not much that you actually can do about it. Which brings us to point number 7, that if you actually force yourself into sitting and standing straight, it's actually going to be even more painful than slouching and sitting in a more slouched position. Because when you force yourself to sit and stand straight, you're going to contract your back muscles, the muscles that extend your back. And this static contraction that you're going to force yourself into being fixed in for several minutes and sometimes hours is going to create pain, irritation, and sensitivity along your back muscles. This pain is going to be relieved when you just slouch. But instead, because of all those misconceptions and the reminders that you need to sit straight, you're going to try to force yourself more into this erect position. So you're going to put yourself into more pain and discomfort than actually relieve yourself. And if you think that you can do exercises to improve your back endurance or your back strength it's not going to change your entire posture if in reality you just feel more comfortable being slouched. Because no amount of endurance or strength training is going to be able to put you in an erect position for 8 hours on a consecutive basis. Because any training that you do, you're going to train your back maximum to sustain 5 or 10 minutes of an erect position, but not more than that. So this is where another time we need to mention that we need to create tools that are more sustainable and that are more practical than just forcing ourselves into sitting straight. The last point is my favorite, because one study showed that sitting in a slouched position can actually be more helpful than forcing yourself into sitting straight. Because when you slouch, it was found that you can actually rehydrate your intervertebral discs. So the discs in your back that you sometimes hear can get injured, or you have a slipped or bulging disc. Sitting in a slouched position, as long as it's not a prolonged slouched position as any other posture, can rehydrate your intervertebral disc and increase your spinal height. When you increase your spinal height, it means that the distance between the vertebrae has now been increased, and the movement is now more stress-free, and there is no friction between the bones when you bend, when you twist, and when you lift objects off the floor. Given these 8 important scientific findings, we can now confidently say that our spine is not actually frail and fragile as the common misconceptions about posture reveal. As a matter of fact, it's way more robust, and it can handle much more loads that we imagine. Otherwise, the human body wouldn't have been able to evolve to lift half a ton of deadlift and half a ton of squat without breaking or without having a severe injury on the spot. As a matter of fact, if we keep thinking of our spine of being this frail object that we need to pay extra attention whenever we lift a pen, or whenever we lift an object off the floor, or whenever we sit, what's actually being created in our mind is the following video that I was happy to find on Instagram of how we actually perceive our spine when we move. So in this video, the actual faces are the faces of the intervertebral discs. And this notion is what sometimes we think when we sit, or when we twist, or when we bend in a way that we are not advised to. As a matter of fact, this is completely wrong. This is not how our spine moves. This is not how our spine is built, like a frail Jenga tower, if you ever played Jenga. It's way more robust than that. It can handle much more forces. It's not just free in space like it's shown here. It's supported by ligaments, it's supported by muscles that are created to ensure its stability while moving freely. So from this point, we can confidently say again that if we keep propagating these misconceptions and fear about the need to always be sitting and standing upright, technically what we're doing is we're creating fear-mongering. Especially among health and exercise professionals, we need to start refraining from using this common language that you need to sit straight, you need to stand straight, or otherwise you're going to have back pain and you're going to injure yourself. So from this point, now we can provide actual, practical, and evidence-based tools that can improve our health and well-being at work without just stressing on how we're sitting and standing. So the most important factor that we need to consider when standing or sitting is the time that you spend in any posture. We're going to provide the actual steps that you can do to break this time spent, but actually breaking the time spent in any posture every 1 to 1.5 hours has been shown to improve your musculoskeletal health in terms of reducing your chances of having back pain or neck pain. And also it has been shown to improve your risk of having diabetes, cholesterol, cardiovascular diseases, or technically any chronic condition that may result from being sedentary and being physically inactive. So breaking your sitting posture is not just about your musculoskeletal health, it's about your general health and all your systems working properly. The second most important factor that we need to consider is your workstation design. You're not supposed to force yourself into a straight sitting or a standing posture. Rather than you need to have a proper office and workstation design that will help you sit straight seamlessly or effortlessly. So this is part of what we do at WellFit as our ergonomic intervention, is that we help design a workstation without spending a huge amount of money on buying a chair or a desk. but we help design a workstation that is ergonomic in a sense that it is designed to suit your capacities rather than you forcing yourself to adapt to a position or to a certain design of the workstation that's not adapted to your needs in particular. After the workstation design, we need to look at the workstation organization. So for example, if you type a lot, the keyboard has to be the closest thing to you. Whereas if you write a lot, you need to have your papers close to you. If your job entails writing, reading, and typing, the office needs to have a document holder attached near the computer and so on. So the workstation organization is how you organize your desk, how you organize your office in a way that's suitable to your needs based on what you use the most and what you use the least, and also to be neat and proper in a way that will help you improve your productivity at work. After setting your workstation organization, we need to look at the tools and the equipment that you frequently use. So from here, there are ergonomic mouse, there is an ergonomic mouse, the ergonomic keyboard, the monitor size should be adapted. If you use the phone so much, you need to adapt a headset instead of just cradling the phone with your neck. So this is another factor that we need to look at. But the good thing is that before you start investing and considering how much money you need to invest on having an ergonomic workstation, we need to remember that first of all, you need to consider the time you spend in any posture. So these are all important, but not as important as your actual work habits. After considering all these four factors, we can finally look at the shape of your posture. And the beauty of adapting this pyramid in your daily practice is that when you improve your workstation design, organization, and invest in the tools and equipment that you frequently use, you're going to have a comfortable and effortless posture that is relatively straight and relatively upright and aesthetically appealing without you having to force yourself into sitting straight or standing straight. So this is the strategy that you want to adopt in your daily practice at work, especially when you're sitting. First of all, break your sitting time every 1 to 1.5 hours. Improve your workstation design. So improve the ergonomics about your workstation. Your workstation organization comes third. Then check the tools and equipment that you frequently use. And finally, we can look at the actual shape of your posture. Now, to give more practical timelines, you need to break your sitting time every 1 to 1.5 hours of continuous sitting. The most important thing or the most beneficial thing you can do is to take a moving break. Every 1 to 1 hour and a half, take a moving break. Go fill your water. Even if you go to the bathroom, just take any walk for 1 to 2 minutes. Just take a mindful moving break every 1 to 1.5 hours. Now, if you're not able to do so, you can just change from a sitting to standing position or vice versa. So if you're sitting for 1 to 1.5 hours, stand and continue working. For example, if you have a standing desk or if you don't have to type on your computer. If you're standing for 1 to 1.5 hours, you need to adopt a strategy where you can sit for 1 to 2 minutes just to change your blood circulation and to rest for a bit. If you're unable to do so, change your sitting posture. If you're erect or sitting upright, slouch. If you're slouching, stand upright or sit upright. So these three strategies are designed from the most important or the most beneficial, which is to take a moving break, to the least important but still better than prolonged sitting, which is to change your sitting posture even when you are sitting. So these are the most common advice that we can give to break your sitting posture. And to be more specific in context, all the information that has been provided are applicable to those with lazy postures. So when we say lazy, is that you can sit upright, but you just prefer to slouch, and you don't have any structural barriers. Or for those who have structural postural deviations, but mild postural deviations, not extreme postural deviations that are a cause or a reason for medical or surgical interventions. I associated here just a graph of an X-ray of what a mild scoliosis is. So this is a mild deviation that has been shown on the X-ray, whereas an extreme scoliosis is where it can affect the lungs and the respiratory system. And the surgical intervention here is that they apply screws to fix the spine in a more straight position. It's extremely painful, and it's very unfortunate when sometimes kids have to go for this surgical intervention without being able to do anything about it, because this is mostly structural and called in medical terminology idiopathic scoliosis, which is unknown reason for scoliosis. So that's technically from my side. These are the references that have been used for this presentation, and the suggested readings as well. If you want to dive more into this topic, please feel free to communicate with us either on LinkedIn or our website, or even our contact information that we're going to provide. I will leave now the platform for my partner and business development director, Mr. Bassam Zahreddin, to talk more about WellFit, our mission and objective, and our methodology for that sense. So Bassam, the stage is all yours.
Yeah, hi Salam. Can you confirm you can hear me and
Yes.
see me? Can you see me?
Can't see you yet.
Yeah, I think you need to do something from your side. It's giving me a message. The host needs to enable this.
Okay, just a second. You can try now.
Okay, can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I hope everybody is enjoying the webinar. I personally use this back support tool, if you can see it on screen, just to fix my sitting posture. And I hope, Salam, you can deliver something technical about it soon, or scientific and medical, some tips about it in the next webinar. So that's what I personally do. I'll try to be very brief. So what this slide explains mainly about WellFit. WellFit operates in the corporate wellness domain, in summary. We aim to improve the well-being and productivity of the individuals who work in the corporate domain and their organizations that they work in. We do have a list of programs that you can refer to its details on WellFit website. But one of the core programs, and relates to everything that Salam explained, is ergonomics, because mainly of its importance to individuals and as well to organizations. And this all is based on global statistics and also local statistics as far as UAE is concerned. So that's a very important topic for employees in general, or individuals in general, and employees in particular well-being. If you move to the next slide, Salam, the methodology. And that's it for me. It's only these two slides. So yeah, no, the methodology, yeah. So to do that, how do we run an ergonomics program in any organization? That slide explains this methodology. We apply a phased approach. It's comprised of 3 main phases and includes 8 steps. So the 3 phases you can see in green, they are explained phase 1 to 3. Step 1 to 4 is the first phase, 5, 6 is the second phase, and 7, 8 are the third phase. So in the first phase, in simple terms, it's an assessment phase. So we come in and assess your ergonomic practices in the company and results in a gap analysis report where it highlights areas for improvement and recommendations. And then steps 5 and 6 are what we call intervention phase. So we step in and deliver a workshop on better practices and improving the ergonomics practices, as well as on-site interventions. That's one-on-one advice and engagement with the individuals, with the employees in the organization, to give them direct hands-on guidance on-site. That's the intervention phase. And then after that, steps 7 and 8, we come back and do a post-intervention phase to assess the result of this work. And that's split into 2 areas as well, similar to the first assessment phase. So self-assessment checklist or questionnaire by the employees themselves, and then an assessment by a WellFit professional. That methodology runs over 1 month from the planning phase start of step 1 into the workshop. And then the intervention depends on the organization's need and how long you want us on site. And then the post-intervention runs in around a week timeline. So overall, roughly, it's around a 2 months program, but depends on the, as I said, the timeline spent on site and the gap upon which we come back to assess post-intervention. And the whole idea of this is very simple. I can narrow it to one statement. In day 1, we measure the rate of lost productivity due to musculoskeletal issues or potential issues in the organization. And day end day, we measure how much this lost productivity rate decreases. There's a KPI we use for that, and that's simply what we try to improve upon in the organizations that we work with. So that's a brief about WellFit. I hope that this webinar created some value add to you. In case you are interested to explore a corporate wellness program for your organization, then please feel free to reach out to us. And in any case, we will certainly keep you in the loop for our future webinars and activities, and hoping that this continues to support you in conducting what you do. Thank you, and over to you, Sanaf.
Thank you, Bassam. If you can give me the host again so I can start the video. And meanwhile, for the final part of this webinar, I would like to have your questions. If you have any questions to share with us, feel free to type them in the chat or in the Q&A area. We would love to hear anything and to talk more or discuss about any concerns or any questions, or if you need to jump back into any slide to talk about it more. Thank you again for your participation, and we hope to see you in our next webinar. We're going to be talking about setting up a home office and what are the most important factors to consider to create a budget home office that's affordable and yet at the same time completely ergonomic. So I will wait a minute for your questions. Make sure also to follow us on LinkedIn to keep checking our articles and the resources that we publish on a monthly basis and also on weekly basis, and to stay up to date with all the webinars that we're going to be providing. Our mission is to improve the awareness, the health awareness in organizations. So we're always going to be providing free material for you to keep checking based on the latest data, what actually works, and making you know what doesn't work as well, so you can avoid this. And our contact information can be seen on this slide. Our Instagram and LinkedIn pages, our websites, and also our email in case you would like to communicate with us through email. Seems like we don't have any questions, so I'd like to thank you all for your time again. We hope that this webinar has added value into your daily practices. We hope to stay in touch with you as well. And until our next webinar, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you more with that. Have a good day, everyone, and have a great week ahead. Goodbye.